Good evening, everyone. I am Kyla Kinisha, and this evening we are catching up with Honorable Natalio Wheatley, Deputy Premier and Minister of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries, and Agriculture. And I cannot forget my district representative up in the 7th District. Now, with so much happening in the BVI as our territory continues to feel the effects of COVID-19, this evening we will discuss our education system, the repatriation of students, and plans amidst the reopening of our borders. We have so much for you viewers, but after this quick commercial break.
The win! Oh! I'm freaking out!
Is time.
284 News.
Coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands.
What's poppin', what's really good, what's happening, what's up?
Davis has won it for the
Viewers, welcome back. As I said before the break, we are here with Dr. the Honorable Natalio D Wheatley. Honorable Wheatley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Kyla. Thank you so much for having me.
I am definitely excited. I think it's the first time I have gotten to sit down with you to discuss some issues, so I will be taking advantage of this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Of course, we are now in the Christmas season, and as we span across, you can see that 284 Media is ready for the season. Now, how are you feeling about the holiday season coming up?
Well, we just opened up the borders, and so far it seems like it's going really well. I went up to the airport and they had things, together, awaiting our tourists, showing them BVI love. So I'm pleased to see how it's going so far, and we just hope for the best. And as for right here in the BVI among our residents, I think we're turning a corner in terms of our economy. We have lots of developments going, so persons are getting some money in their pockets. So far we've been able to keep the territory safe. And we're just hopeful that persons can have a very good Christmas season.
Awesome. And you mentioned the borders. I know you said that you're seeing some good reviews thus far and you're thinking that it's going well. But do you have any other remarks or sentiments as it pertains to the reopening of our borders?
Well, just to encourage persons to follow the protocols. Of course, we took the quarantine from 14 days down to 4 days, and that presents some risk. So it behooves us to make sure that we wash our hands, that we wear our mask, that we socially distance, and of course we don't forget about what's happening in the rest of the world. COVID-19 is really spiking in the United States, in the United Kingdom, throughout Europe, and so we know that there's a great risk that it can come to our border, so we just need persons to remain diligent and stay safe.
Of course. Now, as you just mentioned, of course, now with limiting that quarantine time to now 4 days, we do see some risk or risk being increased. And of course, as the education minister, parents, students, and teachers might have some reservations as it pertains to the reopening of our borders. Now, what would you say to that?
Well, I've been really impressed with how the principals, the administrators, the chief education officer, the education officers, how they've been administering the schools. Of course, it's a very difficult situation. I have two children in school, one at Willard Wheatley and one at Elmer Stout High School, and I think that we've been able to do a very good job to have continuity in the education system. Some persons, of course, we know don't do well with the distance learning, and so we've been able to open the schools to a portion of students to be able to come in and to be able to get some education, and we have other students coming in on a shift system. So I believe that the teachers have really done a good job to make the most out of this particular situation. We have lots of laptops as well. The Ministry of Education has received laptops so that students shouldn't have to be learning on their phones
Understood.
and on other devices which are not appropriate. So the good thing about having the laptops is that we have the ability to be able to switch fully online. So if we do have a situation, we feel as though we're ready to be able to address it.
Okay, so does the ministry have any plans as it pertains to the reopening of the borders, let's say, God forbid, increasing cases and keeping schools reopened?
Well, right now we really want to be able to get as many children into school as possible. But we did pass a plan months and months ago, and the plan has some flexibility in
Okay.
it. So when we have an outbreak, it triggers aspects of the plan. So certainly if we have an outbreak, we will go fully online.
Okay, understood. Now, do you have any concerns? I know you said that you are very pleased with the principals and the administration, their response to the reopening and the shift system. But do you have any concerns? And are there anything, would you say, can change as we continue to adapt to this COVID-19 times?
Yeah, we always have concerns. We've been able to do some work in the schools, but over the Christmas break, we want to do some more.
Okay.
More sanitization stations, fixing some of the infrastructural issues we have in the schools so they're prepared. We want to put like more technology in the classrooms to make it easier on the parents, on the teachers, because the teachers sometimes have to teach students in the classroom and at home at the same time. So that requires more technology like televisions and things like that in the classroom. So it's things that we're working on and we hope to improve on. Also, of course, any system needs to be tweaked. And so there are certain tweaks that we need to be able to make to the system to make it function more effectively. But overall, I'm generally pleased. And we just hope that over the Christmas break, we'll be able to do some work on some of the schools so we can be even better for the next term.
Of course. Now, how long is Christmas break and when does Christmas break start?
I believe it starts within probably 2 weeks or so.
Okay.
I have to get the exact dates, and I'm not quite sure the exact date we come back in January. Probably maybe like the second week of January or something like that. But I'll get those specific dates for you.
I do appreciate that. Now, of course, we understand the fluidity of the COVID-19 virus and all that can happen within a short span of time. But as we are looking at it from now, from this vantage point, do we see our students going back to full in classroom instruction anytime soon?
I wouldn't say anytime soon. Okay. We just opened the borders, so we have to evaluate that and see how it goes. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to be doing a hybrid system. And as things progress, of course, we have different developments in the world. Right now, it's spiking in the world. But of course, they've introduced things like vaccines and things like that, which I know will cause a debate in our society. But we continue to monitor the situation. And then at the point when we think it's safe, then in consultation with the Ministry of Health and the Health Emergency Operation Center, then we can have a discussion about making changes. And those changes would have to be made on the cabinet level.
Of course. Now, some weeks ago, you spoke to the students of the Virgin Islands Technical School, and we do want to congratulate all of those students for a job well done. But during your speech to them, you spoke about the fact that you're encouraging them to take these skills and use them for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Because of course the economy that we are in, many private sector as well as the government have now freezed hiring.
Right.
Can we speak a little bit about that?
Well, actually, Kyla, I've listened to you and Tamalji on the radio a lot, and this is a issue that you all have spoken about eloquently when it comes to young persons and jobs. It's a difficult time now when it comes to jobs. It's not like before. When I was going to high school, for instance, just about everybody coming out of high school almost expected a high school a government job. And sometimes even before you graduated in the summers, many students would get jobs in the government. And we're just going through the budget process right now. We'll have our budget debate next week.
Okay.
But what we've seen is that the recurrent expenditure has been growing and growing and growing. And of course, our revenue has grown over the years, but now it's kind of flatlined.
Of course.
And we can't continue to grow the recurrent expenditure. So, which means employment, which means hiring. So persons coming out of high school and H. Lavity Stout Community College have to look more so towards the private sector for employment. Of course, the public sector will always have to hire persons, particularly persons who have specialist skills,
right,
and things like that, persons who are trained in particular areas. You know, even in terms of the scholarship program that we're running, we're targeting certain areas for scholarships for development. Perhaps we have persons on contract in certain areas. When the contract comes to the end, you want to make sure you have succession planning.
right.
But we need the private sector to perform better. And over the last 20, 30 years, a lot of the positions in the private sector we have filled with persons coming from elsewhere.
Okay.
And they have served us well. They've become a part of our society. We love the fact that we have many persons here contributing positively. But at the same time, we also have to think about persons who are coming out of our school system, who are returning from college, and make sure we have positions from them. So we have to make a transition from importing labor really to training our young people to take up their rightful place in society. And we have to talk about things like you all have been speaking about on, I think it's not Real Talk. It's,
Let's be real.
Let's be real. Things like salaries for young persons, things like being able to build homes, being able to rent apartments at
Right.
affordable rates. Because of course we know once our young people get trained, there is a pull towards the United States of America, where they can be well paid and they can have a very comfortable life for themselves. So we need to be able to build those things into our society here so we can attract persons back home. And we have to be able to target certain positions to be able to localize, like the Minister of Labor has been saying.
I smile because I remember that conversation as I was speaking on Let's Be Real, and it just shows that you are an avid listener, and I do want to thank
every
you.
Saturday.
I do want to thank you
And
for
I
that.
miss it. Yeah.
But okay, you brought up succession planning and basically training our young people to take up the mantle, yes, in the public sector, but as well in the private sector, and really focusing in on localizing our workforce. And I think we've been speaking a lot about that recently, but how, as the Minister for Education, and really having some influence over that populace, that young persons,
Yes.
how do we do that as a territory? What is our first steps?
Yeah, definitely the education system plays a huge role in terms of how we think about, let's say something like technical studies. We have the technical vocational school, VIS, and just even in terms of how we think about that, the
program.
students.
Yeah.
Before, it was looked down upon a bit. We even had a program by the name of LAPS before. I forget what the acronym stands for,
Right.
for LAPS, but it was a program teaching skills. And persons were looked down upon. We spoke about for a long time how persons viewed level 40, 41, 50, 51. All of those things contributed to persons having a low opinion of technical areas. And those are the areas we need persons to go into.
I definitely agree with you. I think even when I was in high school, and that was not too long ago, of course, as you said, those technical studies were considered a 41 or 51 program. And although students would be interested in those programs because it was considered a lower program,
Right.
that is why persons would stray away. And as you said, I think visits now has been turned around to show persons that this is a valuable education experience, just like any other institution in the BVI. So I do agree with you there. Now, COVID-19 have really changed our structure and for education as well as our workforce.
Right.
Now, what are some areas that we can look into in training and encouraging our young persons to get into so we can continue to develop the BVI?
Well, it's interesting you spoke about it because I have a program running in my district right now called a RATED program. And RATED stands for registration, apprenticeship, training, employment, and development.
Okay.
We've had apprenticeship programs before in the BVI in certain sectors, of course, but I think we need more of a district focus because we have certain persons in the district who never would come to town and participate in some of these programs. So really when you see them in the community, you can target them for these different programs. And I have specific ways of getting the young people involved through different incentives I given them by putting them on work programs and getting them to sign up for the program. But on this program, I would like to see a lot of these young men, many of them who never finished high school. I would like to see them get into construction. I would like to see them get into carpentry. I would like to see them become electricians. I would like to, and of course, they have the potential. I'd like to see some of them become farmers. And the challenge we have is that many of them, for whatever reasons, have been turned off from academics.
Right.
And this, for instance, is an academic school. You have to be able to pass your English, you have to be able to pass your math and all your different subjects. And some of these persons have struggled in education. Some of them have, different issues. Perhaps maybe the style of how we teach doesn't cater to their particular learning style. And that's something that we're doing workshops and we're working on teaching to persons who learn differently. We're also seeing if we can identify persons who have different disabilities. They learn differently. Some of them may have hearing problems, visual problems, cognitive disabilities, to be able to diagnose those early and to have early intervention plans. Of course, we have to improve our special education delivery. And we just in the ministry hired someone, a special education officer, Miss Afia Smith.
Yes.
And she's doing an excellent job. She understands exactly what needs to be done. And now what we need to do is give her the resources to be able to make it happen. And all of these things will help us to deliver to a certain segment of the student population who haven't been doing well in academics. But those persons who are already out of the school system, we perhaps have to put a program in place that's not so heavily development on the traditional academics, but provides more skills. And perhaps maybe a certificate program that they can complete just to acquire skills and to be able to get into the job market. And we have positions available in those. That's why we're importing labor to do these different positions. So the positions are available. It's just to make sure that the young people have the skills. And it's not just the technical skills, to be able to have on-the-job skills, being respectful to authority, showing up on time, not cursing out your supervisor, things like that, not disappearing the next day for work when you're expected to be at work. A lot of these skills, some of these young persons have not yet developed. So we have to put programs in place to be able to do that.
Great. Well, we would love to hear more about the RATED program. Sounds very interesting. But as we move on, let's speak a little bit about the repatriation of our students. Of course, COVID-19 have really made some of our students repatriate home. May it be that they have graduated this year or graduated years before, but now are coming back home trying to make a contribution to our economy. Of course, the economy and the job market is a bit slow. What would you say to those students that are repatriating home?
Well, the thing that we need is more data.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that we do have students returning home, but we're trying to put systems in place to be able to collect the information so we can better plan for persons when they come home. Because sometimes persons come home and that's perhaps maybe the first time persons start thinking about, well, how are we going to place these persons, how we make best use of their skills. I would like to put a system in place that way before persons come home, that perhaps we have some survey data. Scholarship students, and usually government knows when they're returning home, but like we said, We can't just look to government anymore. So I basically put in place that scholarship students' information has to be shared with the labor department as well.
Okay.
But we want to put other systems in place to ensure and support systems. And it's not just government as well. It would be nice if young persons who have returned home form little support groups to support persons who are coming home, even from a social perspective. Because, of course, when you come home, things are a little different from when you're abroad.
Of course.
So we have to put some of these support systems in place to be able to make sure when persons come home, we can get them placed. But I've developed a partnership with the Labor Department. And we have discussed, COVID-19 threw us off a little bit, but we've discussed actually having a conference between the Labor Department and the Education Department. And when I constructed the scholarship committee, I put persons who represent different sectors of the private sector and government there. Like I had a Rakima Tombo, who's a CCT employee. She was really there because she has a company called Higher BVI. She's on the scholarship committee. I have somebody from Human Resources, which is Mrs. Kaisa Penn. I have somebody on there from Labor Department, which is Ms. Kishan Cupid Brathwaite. And we have a representative from the BVI Chamber of Commerce. And we have other persons who represent different sectors, whether it's the tourism sector, financial services sector, etc. And the reason why I put those group of people together because I want them to start speaking more, so we can have a goal and a plan to execute to get persons who return home into the job market. And it's an ongoing process, but it's something that you should be hearing more about very soon.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, and I look forward to that. Now, as we enter into the new year in the upcoming weeks, now what are some projects or some visions for the Ministry of Education, Culture, Agriculture, and so on?
There's some exciting things taking place. Well, first of all, we want to do a lot of infrastructural work in our schools. That's very important. Some of the things we were speaking about in terms of the connection between labor and education, you should be seeing coming in the new year. The teacher education program should be returning to H. Labatista Community College. It was stopped for a while, and I'm very grateful, been working for that. The college, as well as the Ministry of Education, has been working hard to get our teacher education program back on stream. We should be continuing with our marine education program at the college, as well as a solar training program that starts in January. Because really what we want our education system to be able to do is have a smoother transition between the education system and employment.
Which I think is very necessary.
Yeah, we have a solid education program here. We should give ourselves some credit. We do have a good education system, but there are some weak areas that we have to focus on. We produce very good students who go all over the world, and they're the top of the class. But where we need to focus a lot of our attention is a special education, being able to have persons go into the technical education field. And I'm going to be doing a lot of work in terms of how we improve our technical labs. And a lot of this has to do with the building of the Elmo Stout High School, the rebuilding of the Elmo Stout High School. So right now we're doing a master plan for the entire campus, and we're planning the design of a building that would be similar to the Ella Dorothy Tarmel building, so that we can make the transition from some of the other campuses where we're on to be housed on the Elmo Stout High School campus.
So what does the timeline for that building looks like?
I'm really pressing to see if we could get our building done by 2023.
Okay.
Or even before, if possible.
Okay.
But right now, the target for that building is 2023, and we want to have the master plan for the high school finished in 2021.
Awesome.
And we're looking towards junior high school. So next year, we're going to start working on a junior high school in the West, which is Isabella Morris Primary School will be rebuilt as a junior high school.
Okay.
Which is what we've been speaking about junior high schools for a while, and that's going to be coming to fruition. And we also look, I'm talking to somebody from the 7th district, so you'll be happy about this. We want to do a junior high school also in the East.
Okay.
Okay, so the west, Isabella Morris, because it's an existing structure that will move a little bit more quickly, but we have a little bit more work to do
And the
to
east,
identify a location and to get a design done for the east. And we also want to have a junior high school on the Elmo Stout High School campus, have a junior high school and a senior high school.
Well, Honorable, I think I've heard some very great things coming out of this interview, and I want to get you on camera to say that you will come back and give us a follow-up on some of these amazing projects. But I do want to thank you for joining me. But before we close out, we have a few more minutes. I want to speak a little bit about the Christmas season. And my viewers know I do love Christmas, so I do want to ask you, what do you have planned, or what are some things that you're looking forward to this Christmas season?
Well, I'm so focused on work, Kyla. I haven't really thought about anything
Oh my God.
personally for myself. Of course, you have the children, and they always enjoy the food, the gifts, and being able to spend time with each other. And I do want to take some opportunities during this Christmas season to spend time with family.
Awesome.
And I encourage everyone to be able to do that because, of course, this is really what the season is about. Of course, it's about the birth of Jesus Christ.
Of course.
And, of course, all of the qualities that we associate with Christ, which is love, loving your neighbor as yourself. And in this season, I want persons not to forget the less fortunate, those persons who perhaps are still without a job, those persons who might be underemployed, they don't have enough hours working, they're struggling, they're not really thinking about gifts, they're just really thinking about survival. So we have a pantry in the 7th District where we've set up a pantry to be able to provide food baskets to persons on a regular basis. I would ask persons maybe to contribute to the pantry. We have one in the 7th District. And if you're not in the 7th District, you also have FSN, and you have the Red Cross, and you have different agencies. We want persons to be able to think of somebody else during the Christmas season. And we're going to try and see if we can provide a little bit more work in the district, District 7, during the Christmas season, so persons can have some money in their pockets. We're going to be, we're supporting this weekend Christmas in the City.
Yes.
Ministry of Education is contributing towards that. We encourage everybody to come out to Christmas in the City. And we're going to have lots of other events throughout the Christmas season. You must have seen the Ministry of Education carolers going around,
Yes.
Spreading Christmas cheer with their COVID-19
So
Christmas
when
song.
will you join them?
Well, my belly is getting big, so I'm almost like Santa Claus right now. So I'm thinking of breaking out the Santa suit.
Right.
And coming out and participating in some caroling. So just look out for Facebook, and you'll see the next date when the Ministry of Education carolers will be around. But just encouraging persons to have a very good Christmas season. And we hope that 2021 is better for many persons than 2020 was.
Awesome. Honorable, I do want to thank you for joining us here on 284 Media. And I want to encourage you that, of course, the government business does not stop, but to find some time, as you said, to spend with family and to spend within your community. But we do want to thank you for the great work that you have been doing thus far. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Kyla. The 7th District is doing big things on 284 Media. We remain proud of you and all you've been able to accomplish here. Y'all are doing a wonderful job. And we thank God for all the blessings we've received as a territory. We've been able, for the most part, to remain safe. And we have a lot to be grateful for. So I'm going to continue going through the Christmas season in a spirit of thanksgiving.
I do agree. Viewers, I do want to thank you for joining us. Of course, we were joined by Dr. the Honorable Natalio D Wheatley. Do have a great evening. I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.